Vets 360 is very narrow focus. What we want to do as an organization is along the lines of prevention through education. As society, we spend a lot of time and effort on cure options. If somebody has a suicidal problem, if somebody has substance abuse, if somebody has legal issues or homelessness, we're ready to help. Our goal as an organization is to do everything we can to stop our young combat veterans going to these cure options. So we do everything from housing, financial literacy, legal, sporting, adaptive sports, alternative healing to the pharmacological typical approach to PTSD, all the way through to try to get them into meaningful education and meaningful employment. If we can do this successfully, then we have a chance to prevent them going, down a road of despondency.
One of the challenges I had rejoining civilian life, the transition, was just transitioning from the structured point of the military to a different structure of civilian life, where I couldn't just go out and say, hey, go and do this. There was an HR involved now. There was political correctness. There was all that stuff. There was less structure in civilian life than I was used to being in the military, and in that regard, I had to adjust the way that I spoke to people. I had to adjust the way that I acted in public because people misconstrued my rigidity for being mean or for being troubled, when that wasn't necessarily the case. It was just trouble transitioning personally back into civilian life.
There's a big gap, big void between military service and a successful civilian life, and our goal is to try to fill that void in some way. I have no problem telling bureaucrats that my job, my goal in life is to do everything I can to stop these young veterans from going to homeless shelters or going to substance abuse programs or veterans court. If I can do that successfully by just providing education, they are amazing individuals if we educate them. We educated them how to fight, we educated them how to follow rules and orders, but we're just not educating them on how to succeed in civilian life, and it's pretty distressing. It's especially distressing because these young veterans don't have to kill themselves because they get to such a level of despondency, which is really driven by just how futile the process feels to them. They see the news, they see the same news we do. 12 to 14 months before you get your appointment, before you get your benefits. Most of these young vets say, well, screw it, not gonna bother. And then they're not used to pushing back. I've been on calls where I've had veterans on the phone and they've asked for something that they're totally entitled to, and somebody on the other end of the phone has said no, and they've gone, okay. Because in the military, they say no, you go, okay. But in the real world, they're absolutely entitled for it, but they don't know enough to push back. They don't know enough to assert themselves, to say, hey, I'm entitled to that. I'm a veteran, I'm a combat veteran. I demand that I see somebody and see them quickly. And I see all too often young veterans without two pennies to rub together because their benefits are taking 6-7 months.
Homelessness, risk for suicide, all kinds of, you name it. The PTSD was never properly named. I think it should be renamed. SFT, Special Forces Training, and or the like. You trained as a first responder, and so you're pretty much asking your military or your public service, the people that work as a public servant, to protect American civilians and politicians or what have you. You're asking us to be Superman, and then when we get out, we're just supposed to like flick a switch and stop being Superman. It doesn't work like that.
My inspiration for starting Vets 360 was really along the lines of I made a decision that I wanted to support veterans in some way on a full-time basis. And then in early 2011, two of my friends killed themselves, both within a 90-day period. Both were high school educated, combat Marines. Both had survived multiple combat tours, yet neither one of them was able to survive civilian life. And that was a pretty rude awakening to my goal to find out why they ended up killing themselves. And that was why I founded Vets 360 as a direct result of losing my two friends.
The turning point that made me feel better, it came about after some pretty intense therapy. I suffered through some pretty intense nightmares and night terrors. I realized that I had an issue when I woke up and I was standing in front of my front door with my knife in my hand, and I don't remember getting there. That's when I sought help. That's when I went to a therapist. Now, my therapy session, I had put it off 3 or 4 times because I really didn't want to be seeing. I didn't think that a civilian therapist could help me. They wouldn't understand me. So I rescheduled 3 or 4 times. When I finally did see the therapist, it was a 28-year-old psych intern from a university, an East Coast Ivy League university, and I wasn't real comfortable talking to her. As a matter of fact, I told her, I said, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to make you cry. And she said, no, I can handle it. I told her my story. She started to cry. I walked out of the room, banged on the glass. I said, look, your intern's in there crying. Call me when you have a real doctor to talk to me. I finally found a doctor through the VA who did an amazing PTSD therapy study. And I've been engaged with that study and that therapy now for almost 4 months.
I've often thought about this, that if I had the opportunity, and I have had the opportunity to talk to a couple of Congress people, but if I was going to talk to Congress and I was going to talk to the president, I would tell them, you have to educate these people about civilian life before they become civilians, not after. Give them the education, give them the tools. You gave them the tools to be soldiers, you gave them the tools to be Marines, you gave them the tools to win wars, kick down doors and blow things up. Give them the tools how to be successful in civilian life, and they will be. And transition some of that big money that you have on the cure options and start putting that to some of the education options, and you'll find there's less of a need for the cure options.
I think that there needs to be more organizations like this one, and the government needs to beef up with a budget. Organizations like Wounded Warrior Project, like Veterans 360, and help them lock arms and lock shields financially. And there's so many things that the government can do to feed veterans, to ensure that there's nobody left behind. We teach that on the battlefield, and then you come home from war after losing brothers and friends, and then you realize, like, we're really the worst alumni on the planet. Really? We're going to let a bunch of frat boys and college kids have a better alumni program than us as ex-military? Like, what? I couldn't believe it. And now I realize, oh wait, there is other Spartans out there, and they have their shield, and they're ready to go. It's sharp, it's shiny, we're ready to roll. It's just a matter of locking shields. And each state in America has to do it. Each community has to say, you know what, no more homeless vets in our town. No more. It ends today. You now have a free YMCA membership. You can camp at a state park. You can take a shower. You can go surfing, and the cops aren't going to harass you because you have a good guy card, the G.I. Joe good guy card. And it shouldn't be the VA card. There's so many things that could be done overnight. And America just would prefer to be blind, I guess? I'm not sure.
I'd like to say that the government needs to step up and do more for the veterans. Myself, my brothers and sisters in arms, we have done many things for the government. We have done things that we were asked. We have fulfilled our duty. I would ask that the government, specifically the President of the United States, look into the VA problems, look into the issues of PTS and post-traumatic injuries, and do something about it. Don't just legislate, don't just put it through try to pass a bill through Congress. Actually do something. reach out to a veterans organization and do something, and put some money towards the veterans organizations. The government spends so much money on trivial things, spending money on who cheated in baseball. I could care less who took steroids in baseball. I could care less. That money should have been pointed towards veterans organizations, helping veterans to overcome their battles, whether they're physical or invisible injuries. So I ask that the government and the President of the United States step up and direct some of that money that we're wasting needlessly on trivial things and invest it in the veterans who fought so valiantly for this country.